Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be talking about Jeep's 4xe powertrain and why the 4xe powertrain kind of flopped. Before we get into this video though, as always, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below, and well, let's dive right into it. So first off, this video is not coming from a Jeep hater, even though this video is not going to be the most positive about something that's happening in the Jeep world. This is coming from someone that, first off, happens to own a Jeep. I have a Rubicon 392. I absolutely love my Rubicon 392. It's the best vehicle that I've ever owned, and the only reason why I would sell this would be to buy another 392. So this is coming from someone who is a Jeep enthusiast, and so I just want to have like an honest and constructive conversation on the whole 4xe situation in hopes that this will bring about some positive change, I suppose, in the Jeep world. So let's, I guess, now officially dive into it. So at this point, almost everyone knows the strange situation that Jeep is currently in, where they aren't selling as many cars as they would like to sell. So I've made plenty of videos about this, so I don't want to spend too much time on this in today's video, but basically year over year, Jeep has seen a sales decline of about 20%, whereas most automakers in the industry have seen their sales increase year over year. And so Jeep is in the situation where, for some reason, their competitors are selling more cars today than they were yesterday, and Jeep is not selling as many. And when you dive into the different Jeep models, then what you'll find is the vehicle, and more specifically the powertrain that seems to be struggling the most, is Jeep's new 4xe powertrain. Now, the 4xe powertrain was developed to answer a problem for a lot of Jeep enthusiasts, and that problem was the fact that they had to decide between having power or good fuel economy. So if you look at the Grand Cherokee lineup, for example, prior to the new generation, you had the 3.6-liter V6 as the base powertrain, and then you had a 5.7 Hemi, then a 6.4 Hemi, and then you had the Hellcat engine. And if you look at those engines, well, first off, the 3.6-liter V6 gets good fuel economy, doesn't have a lot of power. And then you look at all of the V8 engines, they have great power, but they get horrible fuel economy. And so Jeep enthusiasts always had to choose between power or fuel economy. And so the 4xe was an attempt to basically remedy that problem, because not only does the 4xe have a ton of power, 375 horsepower, and then 470 pound-feet of torque. So that's almost as much power, it's actually more power than the 5.7 Hemi and way more torque. And it's about the same amount of torque as the 6.4 Hemi. But on top of that, it gets great fuel economy. So it has over 20 miles of electric driving range, whether you get it in the Grand Cherokee or the Wrangler, and the MPG rating is like 50, I think it's like 56 or something. Sorry, my memory might be a little bit foggy on that, but regardless, it was obviously the answer to that problem. Now, before we move on to the next feature, we need to talk about today's video sponsor, Morgan & Morgan. Now, believe it or not, the modern world is actually a pretty treacherous place. Every single time you go out for a drive, there's a chance that you could get into an accident. You could be walking in front of a business, they could have something on the ground, and you could slip and fall and hurt yourself. And on top of that, you could just be doing your job, right? Like you always do, and something could happen and you could sustain a major injury. This is a topic that's very important to me personally, because I drive about 40,000 miles per year for the channel. And so there are a lot of situations that I'm put in on a day-to-day basis where accidents almost happen. Now, knock on wood, nothing's happened for years, but there's always the chance that something could happen. And well, this is where Morgan & Morgan comes in. They are America's largest law firm with over 100 offices, over 800 lawyers, and over 4,000 case staff that are all ready to help you out. And one of the best parts about working with Morgan & Morgan is that things like the negotiations, the court hearings, and the research associated with putting together a case are all free unless you win. And so if you're involved in some kind of personal accident, whether it be a car accident, a slip and fall accident, or an accident at the workplace, then you might want to get help from Morgan & Morgan. And on a little bit of a side note, don't feel bad about hiring an attorney. Remember that you're suing the insurance company that is worth billions upon billions of dollars. They can more than pay for the compensation that you deserve. So if you are injured in an accident, then you can check out Morgan & Morgan at www.forthepeople.com/Ben Hardy, or you can give them a call at #529, that is pound law. Again, www.forthepeople.com/Ben Hardy or pound law. And it looks like the chicken's rustling in the back. They agree. Go with Morgan & Morgan. And so you would think that Jeep giving an answer to a big problem that Jeep people have, again, having to decide between power and fuel economy, would be super well received. And the 4xe was actually initially very well received. Everyone was super excited about it because, again, having fully electric driving range, getting really good fuel economy, and having a lot of power, like everything that a Jeep person would want out of a Grand Cherokee or Wrangler, it was super exciting. And so upon initial release, the 4xe was actually extremely popular with Jeep people. A bunch of people jumped in to try out the new powertrain because of everything that it has going for it. But then reality started to set in for some of these 4xe owners, and there are several different problems that came about. The first problem actually was charging. So with plug-in hybrids, one of the biggest benefits of them is that you can charge them up so then you don't have to use any gas. And this is a really cool utility of plug-in hybrids. But this also means that you have to charge them. And so if you want to use the charging infrastructure that we have in the US, then you'll realize that it absolutely sucks outside of Tesla, and half the time you go to charge your vehicle, it doesn't actually get charged. Now, obviously, being a plug-in hybrid, you can still drive on gasoline power, which is completely fine. So like, even if you don't get a charge, you're not gonna be left stranded like you would be in a fully electric vehicle. But that also kind of kills some of the fun of owning the 4xe, because a big part of it is that you have that fully electric power. And so if you don't have use of that, it's kind of like, what exactly did I go and pay for? Now, obviously, you can also charge the vehicle at home, but being a plug-in hybrid with a slightly larger battery pack means that it does take quite some time to charge, especially if you don't have upgraded outlets. And so in some cases, you know, people wouldn't necessarily be able to get a full charge on the vehicle the next time that they drive it. And so again, it goes into the whole situation where it's exciting because you've got electric range, but outside of, you know, having upgraded outlets and being lucky that the charging infrastructure here in the US works, you might be put in a situation where you're just using it and driving it like you would any other gasoline powered car. Now, I do need to mention that this is obviously not just an issue for the 4xe powertrain. This is an issue for every single electric car and every single plug-in hybrid. And frankly, this is the biggest hurdle for automakers and for the government to convince more people to dive into the plug-in hybrid world and into the fully electric world. The horrible charging infrastructure that we have and just the hurdles that you have to go through to charge up electric vehicles or plug-in hybrid vehicles right now in the US, it's not all that great. But I did need to mention it in the story because, well, the 4xe ultimately is a plug-in hybrid, so it's going to suffer from the image issues and from all of the other issues that you're going to have with any plug-in hybrid or any fully electric vehicle. And I think that's the reason why hybrid vehicles, regular hybrid vehicles, are still more popular than plug-in hybrids or fully electric vehicles. And if you're wondering the difference, regular hybrid vehicles typically have a battery pack that's about 1 kilowatt hour to maybe 3 kilowatt hours in size, whereas plug-in hybrids is usually 10 kilowatt hours to 20 kilowatt hours in size. And then with fully electric vehicles, you're usually at least 60 to 100 kilowatt hours in terms of the size. And well, this leads us into the next problem, which is reliability with the 4xe powertrain. Now, I can't find exact numbers in terms of the reliability figures on the 4xe, but I can tell you anecdotally, there are several people that I personally know that own 4xes that have had issues with them. And I have people reach out to me because I run this channel, and they've told me they've also had issues with their 4xes. Now, not every single person that purchases a 4xe has issues. There's one person that I can think of off the top of my head that, like, all they tell me is that it's the greatest vehicle they've ever owned. They absolutely love it, and they never want to buy anything else. But again, I also have a bunch of messages from other people saying that, yeah, for some reason I was driving and the Jeep just like stopped working. Like it just went into limp mode and I had to get it towed to the dealership. And with some people, it was as simple as like a software update, right? There was a software update and then the vehicle seemed to work fine. But with other people, there wasn't really a fix. And I know of several people that just got sick and tired of dealing with all the issues, so they just sold it. Now, the good thing for Jeep is that these people sold it for another Jeep, but I'm sure that there were some people that just got like a bad taste in their mouth and decided to go buy from another brand. And this leads us into the next problem with the 4xe, and that is actually the price. And this isn't just a 4xe specific thing. This is a plug-in hybrid specific thing. The 4xe does command a pretty big price premium over the 3.6-liter V6. And this is something that you just see across the industry with plug-in hybrids, where plug-in hybrids are significantly more expensive than their traditional hybrid counterparts. The example that I always give to show like the cost difference between hybrid, plug-in hybrid, and fully electric is with the new Kia Niro, because that has all three powertrains. A Kia Niro hybrid is like a $30,000 vehicle. A plug-in hybrid Niro is like a $40,000 vehicle, and a fully electric Niro is like a $50,000 vehicle. And again, this is the uphill battle that electric car makers and, plug-in hybrid car makers have to go over, is the fact that the powertrains are more expensive and some people just don't want to spend the extra money. Now, obviously, with plug-in hybrids and with fully electric vehicles, you do get the federal tax credit if the vehicle qualifies, which is up to $7,500. But you also have to make enough money to owe enough tax to get the full benefit of that tax credit. And so not everyone is able to save the $7,500 tax credit that is offered on these plug-in hybrids and these fully electric vehicles. And so again, this is just something that's just going to take some time to figure out. But until, plug-in hybrids and fully electric vehicles are closer in price to regular ICE cars and hybrids, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to buy just because of cost. And so what is Jeep's answer to this whole 4xe situation? Well, first off, parent company Stellantis has announced that they are freezing prices. So there are not going to be price increases on, Jeeps into the foreseeable future. And on top of that, a lot of different Jeeps are actually going to get a refresh / redesign in the next few years. And so you're going to get nicer product and you're not going to have to pay more money for that. But that isn't going to shrink the price gap between a V6 and a 4xe. So it's good that the prices aren't going to go up, but there's still going to be that price gap between the two powertrains. Now, on top of freezing prices, the other announcement is the fact that Stellantis is actually pulling back on their electrified goals here in the US. So California emission states are still going to get hybrids delivered to dealers that are within those states, but states that are not California emission states are not going to get hybrids delivered to them anymore. Now, you still can buy hybrid vehicles from the Stellantis brands within these states, but it sounds like they're going to be special order only, which again makes sense when the vehicles are just stacking up on dealer lots and they're not selling. They're kind of basically putting themselves in a situation where it's like, if you want it, then we'll sell it to you. But if you don't want it, we're not going to just pointlessly build it to have it sit on a dealer lot, which I think is a very smart business strategy. Now, in terms of my personal opinion on this whole 4xe situation, first off, yes, Jeep can definitely do some things to improve the reliability of the powertrain, but I'm sure that they're already working on that, so I'm not too worried about that side of things. And, on top of that, they obviously could have, basically priced the 4xe a little bit closer to the V6 to make it more of like a no-brainer type situation. I mean, look at what Mazda has done with their CX-90 plug-in hybrid. If you look at the base inline-6 CX-90 price versus the plug-in hybrid versus the high-output CX-90, again with an inline-6, then you'll see that all the powertrains are pretty close in price. And so you're, choosing less so based on price and more so based on which powertrain you like the most. And so I think that Jeep should do that with the V6, the 5.7 Hemi, and with the 4xe powertrain with the Grand Cherokee. Obviously, you can't get a 5.7 Hemi in the Wrangler, but I think if the three powertrains were all priced really close to each other, then I think there would actually be a higher take rate with the 4xe because it's obviously the superior powertrain when you compare it to the 3.6 liter V6. The 5.7 Hemi, you could make some arguments with that, again, because of reliability, but if Jeep improves the reliability in the 4xe, then that completely makes that argument null and void. But anyways, I think the biggest thing going against the 4xe, frankly, is just what buyers currently want in this market. I don't think anyone could have guessed that we would have gone from a market, again, at the peak of 2021, where everyone wanted electric, everyone wanted plug-in hybrid, to now in 2023, people want standard hybrids, but people don't want electric anymore, and they don't want plug-in hybrid. I don't think Jeep, I don't think Tesla, I don't think any automaker could have guessed that there would be a huge shift in what buyers here in America want when it comes to vehicles. And so I think it was just one of those situations where Jeep went out on a limb and tried something new. And again, upon initial release, it worked out really well because that's what the market wanted. But now the market's decided that they no longer want that. And so with that being said, what I think that Jeep should focus on is, again, improving that powertrain, but also get the inline-6, get the Hurricane engine in the Jeep lineup outside of the Wagoneer. It's obviously in the Wagoneer, but we need the Hurricane in the Grand Cherokee and we need the Hurricane in the Wrangler. I think that that would not only boost sales with both vehicles, but I think that it would frankly just help the brand meet the fuel economy ratings that they're trying to meet with all of the new government regulations that we have. Let me know what you guys think about the 4xe situation, and let me know if you were considering buying a 4xe and decided not to buy a 4xe. Like, what prevented you from buying the powertrain? I'll see you.